Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, my homeowner association neighbor drills a hole in his fence to spy on us and then calls the cops to get us arrested for illegally swimming nude in our own private backyard. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. And the title story starts like this. There are a couple of ways I can format this story, but for it to make the most sense, I think I will tell you what the neighbor did first without our knowledge and then get into the meat of things. Now, this neighbor is really big on the HOA and thinks that he has some sort of authority to do anything he wants. Several times we have had to kick him off of our property and even out of our pool. With him trying to claim it's public land because of the HOA, only for us to tell him that it is still our private property. And of course that he is not welcome. We have even threatened to call the police on him for trespassing if he didn't quit. His next solution was something that I find to be disgusting. So we share a fence and it does a pretty good job of keeping his wandering eyes away from us. He ended up drilling a hole in the fence just large enough that he could sit down on his side and look through. We have bushes over there, so we would have never seen it, but he was getting a great view of us and the backyard. My wife and I are the kind of people that don't like being cooped up inside, but also like our private time. Our backyard is perfect for that and we love our setup. We have some outdoor couches, a speaker to hook up music, a grill and a nice pool. And as some couples do, we sometimes enjoy swimming naked with each other. It's one of the biggest benefits to having a private pool in my opinion. Remember that at this point we had no idea about the spy a-hole and assumed that we were alone. So instead our neighbor was watching the entire time and from what I found out later was sitting there for a good while with us being totally naked. And yeah, there's a line between peeper and creep, and with the amount of time he was watching before doing anything else, I think that he crossed that line into creep. And by the way guys, I think if you drill a hole into a wall or fence to watch your neighbor, I'm pretty sure that makes you a creep by default. Anyway, at some point during his free show, he came to the conclusion that he was offended by it and actually called the police on us. You can imagine the embarrassment as our backyard filled up with police and we had to get out of the pool and get towels around ourselves. About 5 cops in total and my wife was mortified. She wanted to just go into the house and never come out again. I was more curious about what they were doing in my backyard since we didn't call them. Me? Can I help you, officers? We got a call about public indecency. Apparently you and your wife were exposing yourselves. Me? I mean yes, we were obviously nude, but I assumed it was fine in our own backyard. We have tall fences and wouldn't have ever gone into the front like this. I mean, you can see how embarrassed we are right now. That was when the neighbor started running over and yelling towards the cops. Neighbor, excuse me, I called to report these heathens for exposing themselves to me. It was disgusting, and as an HOA board member I can tell you right now that it is both illegal and against our bylaws. Officer, I'm sorry sir, hold on for one moment so we can make sure we got this right. So this couple exposed themselves to you and then got into their pool. Neighbor, yes. Officer, what were they doing on your property? Neighbor, they weren't, they were right here. Upon asking how he knew about it was when it was revealed to everybody about his magic little hole in the fence. He should have been glad that cops were around because I might have beaten him up for spying on us and seeing my wife naked. I couldn't stop myself from yelling and the police needing to have us be away from each other in order to get everything straight. I was busy having my own little fit wanting him arrested for spying on us, with the officer saying that they couldn't arrest him on the spot for that and I would have to file a separate report. For now, they had to finish with the indecent exposure issue. Neighbor was talking to another officer and coming up with his own reasoning of why it was considered that. For people that don't know, it's only illegal to be nude like that if you're in a public space or even around people that don't consent in a private space. Neither one of those rules were the case, so we were not exposing ourselves to anybody. It was not our fault that he was staring at us through a peephole without us knowing. I managed to catch some of the conversation going on between neighbor and an officer. Neighbor, but I saw them nude. That means they were exposing themselves to me. Officer, it's their private property. Unless you own this home and pool, they have every right to swim in it like that. You should not and cannot go looking at people through holes in a fence. Neighbor, this is an HOA neighborhood. That means there's no such thing as private property. It's all public and I had to watch them to see if they were following the bylaws. I have the right to do that. Officer, I don't know what rules it says in your bylaws, but I do know that our laws go above that, and you are wrong in this case. If you want to file a lawsuit against them, I cannot stop you, but I can advise you that you will lose. In fact, if anybody has a case, it is them for invasion of privacy. The police eventually left and neighbor was forced back on his side of the fence. I know the police told us we could sue him, but unless he was gonna try first, we didn't want to bother getting a lawyer and all of that. He most likely would have ended up with a warning and getting free legal counsel from the HOA or something, while we would have to pay out of pocket. He did warn us that he wasn't done with this and was taking it all the way to the HOA president. Then supposedly we would get sent to court and fined for exposing ourselves. That threat has yet to come, and I have a feeling will never actually happen. He might not have a brain, but I'm sure at the very least the HOA lawyers do. What I did make sure was his hole was totally covered up. I added more bushes to really block him in case he tried to drill another hole into the fence. I also inspected regularly to see if he got any ideas. Again, so far he seems to be quiet and probably got told off by the HOA president. Still, I don't think I will ever figure out his logic on the whole situation. You can type in the comments if you think that what we did was wrong and if you side with him. The police siding with us was enough, and we will not stop enjoying ourselves on our private property because of one a-hole. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I'm curious what you have to say about this. Do you think that OP was in the wrong or not? Let me know in the comments, and while you're at it, please don't forget to like the video if you enjoy my content. Thank you so much in advance. The next one is a malicious compliance story. Years ago, I worked as an assistant manager for a retail store in art supplies. My store was in a fairly affluent area, and we got lots of bored housewives who would drop $500 because they wanted a hobby. So one year, the company offered a one-day only coupon for Black Friday. The store was swamped. Saturday was swamped, Sunday was swamped. I'm running a register and trying to get people through as rapidly as I can when she arrives. We will call her Debbie, D. Debbie, throwing 3 bags full of merchandise on my counter. I want to return all of this stuff and rebuy it. Me, okay, can I ask why? People sometimes did this because they had used the wrong payment method or something, but I needed to verify. D. I bought all of this stuff on Friday at store 1,500 miles away, and their tax rate is higher, so I want to return all of it and buy it here to pay lower taxes. And now hurry up, I've been driving all day and I'm tired. This is gonna be a pain on a very busy day over what comes out to about $2.50. I confirm with the other manager, who agrees that this is ridiculous, but we just need to do it. So I start her return, but the totals don't match up, so I have to call and talk to the on-call support rep. He tells me that I can only refund my state's tax and not the other amount. The solution is to manually adjust prices until the tax and totals match. As I'm doing this, Debbie is complaining about how she is tired from driving, I'm taking too long, her dog, her feet, her back, whatever. But eventually, I get everything balanced and process her return. Okay, the return has been processed. It's about time. You'd be done already if you weren't so stupid. Now I want to buy it all again. Q Malicious Compliance Part 1. The thing about art supplies is that they can be small and in multitudes, and that's what she had purchased. Individual pencils, brushes, pastels, sheets of paper, etc. Sure thing, ma'am, but I want to be absolutely certain that I ring everything up right, since I'm dumb, you know? So, with a sweet smile, I take everything out of the bags and ring them up one by one again. Of course, some stuff does not scan, so it has to be looked up. As I go along, she's getting more and more agitated, the insults get more frequent, and now everyone in the other lines are glaring at her. At last, everything is rung up, and I give her the total. Q Malicious Compliance Part 2. Remember that coupon from the beginning of the story? Well, the code has been pulled from the system, so her new total with the reduced tax rate is significantly higher than the old one. Debbie loses it and starts screeching. It's not even words at this point, only noise. Sorry ma'am, but it looks like you used our exclusive coupon on Friday. Unfortunately, that coupon is no longer valid. Your new total will be X amount of total. She kept screaming but eventually paid, snatched her items and left. It was a good day to be retail. And yeah, Ripe Stars, if you've ever worked in retail and had to deal with Karens like this, then please feel free to share your own story either in the comments or on r/ripestories on Reddit, where you can post full-length stories without issues. Either way, the next story is titled Complying with Everything. Years ago, I was a cook at a well-known fast casual restaurant known for their large burritos and charging extra for guacamole. I worked hard because the place was very understaffed given the number of customers that came in. Management was understanding when we had to cut corners to make sure people didn't wait for food. One of the rules we had to follow before cooking the rice was to rinse the raw rice 3 times until the water runs clear. Vague? I know. How clear is clear? What if after 3 rinses the water is not clear? 3 times and runs clear, or 3 times or runs clear? Who knows? I didn't ask. Most of the time we would give the rice 1 or 2 rinses before throwing it into the cooker. Never had any problems with customers complaining about it, and we never ran out of rice. Since there were never any problems, management didn't care. Everyone was happy, that is, until one day Miss Manager decides it's time to enforce every single rule exactly. Not sure why. To get to the position she was in, she knew how to do all the individual tasks in the kitchen, so she knew the rules. However, she did not know how to conduct the symphony of the dozens of simultaneous tasks at the speed and accuracy required to keep customers moving and to never burn anything. I, on the other hand, did. She did not know which corners were okay to cut and which ones were not. But I did, as I was getting ready for the busy shift, but the kitchen was not in busy mode yet. So here I am, rinsing rice, and Miss Manager approaches me. Make sure to rinse the rice until the water runs clear. I look at her and respond, I always do. She knew I was lying, but she knew why. She knew that it would take longer to make the rice, but I was the only person who could make sure that rice never runs out. Her life would be hell if we ran out of rice. She had a chance to let it go, she didn't though, so Mr. Cook, I know you don't follow that rule. Keep rinsing the rice until the water runs clear, and before you put this rice on the cooker, come find me and show me that it runs clear. I looked at her with a straight face and replied, keep rinsing the rice until the water runs clear? Got it. I begin, I fill the pot of rice with water, agitate the rice, pull out the perforated part of the pot and dump out all of the cloudy water. After 3 times the water still resembles water skim milk, I look up and she is watching me. She asks, does that water look clear to you? It was a rhetorical question. I see how it is, I start rinsing again. Satisfied, she walks away. I continue repeating the process. A while goes by and yes, I'm counting the number of times. The long grains of rice are breaking apart and the entire pot is turning into a strange mushy mixture of white rice. Given the time I'm taking on this dumb task, everything else that needs to get started in the kitchen is falling behind. Finally, Miss Manager appears in the kitchen again. You're still rinsing rice? The timing was perfect. I dump out the water in front of her and ask her, does that water look clear to you? As I dump out the precursor to slightly watered horchata, she softly says, no. I step away from the sink. How many times do you think I've rinsed this rice? I ask. 7, she answers. No, 37. I wasn't joking. I have rinsed this rice 37 times and the water is not running clear to your satisfaction. Should I continue? She looks at the rice, knows it is unusable, that she has lost the fight. On one hand, she cannot tell me to keep cooking because the ground up rice was only a few rinses and a cook away from becoming grits. On the other hand, she cannot tell me to stop rinsing because then she would be in violation of the sacred rice rinsing commandment. Additionally, she cannot fire me, otherwise the store could not open. She scheduled me to work the entire day and she sure knows that she couldn't do what I do in the kitchen. Fine, she relents. Get back in there and make sure we are ready when it's time to open. I laughed to myself as I went back to work. I win. And here, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, having to work together with such a boss would make me absolutely crazy. Let me tell you, being self-employed is really a godsend. Anyway, the next one is a story from r/amIthejerk, and it is titled, Am I Really in the Wrong? Just recently, my husband, 31, was promoted to assistant manager of the warehouse. We both work on the ups of 50 hours a week. I am shift manager at a behavioral disorders facility. Both jobs are very hands-on and strenuous. Since his promotion, he has developed an entirely different attitude. Extremely entitled and, dare I say, rude as all F. He's always boasting and bragging. This has been going on for 3 weeks. So some examples are as followed. On his days off, he wants the house to be radio silent. If our 4-year-old wants to play, he tells her to stick to her bedroom because he needs peace and quiet after working so hard. If I make our daughter lunch, he will immediately say, "Where's mine?" He asks me to grab him things damn near constant all hours of the night. He expects nightly back rubs, but if I ask, he will scoff at me and say, "I worked all day," even if I had as well. He expects meals that he likes made every night, regardless if me or our daughter like the meal or not. He also now acts like he has full say over the money, because he makes more. Last night was the tip of the iceberg for me. Before this, I let a lot of crap slide because it was a recent promotion, and hell, he is excited, so I get it. But last night around like 11 PM, I was in bed scrolling through my phone, and he comes into the bedroom, lays down and says, "Babe, you should go make me some ice cream. I want the chocolate drizzle on it. Oh, and don't forget the cashews." And then he starts scrolling through his phone. I ignore it because I feel at this point I was gonna snap. He then shook my leg and said, "Did you hear me?" So I responded with, "Yeah, I did hear you, and no, go make it yourself. You are literally just out there. Your sense of entitlement is way out of line. Do something for yourself." He became offended and instantly like effing clockwork said, "But I worked all day." So I snapped back with, "Yeah, I did too. In fact, I worked 12 hours to your 8. Like I said, do crap for yourself." He is now saying that he is not acting entitled and that I was just taking my bad day out on him and that everything I said makes him feel unappreciated. Am I the jerk here? Did I push it too far? And Ripe Stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Do you think that OP was the a-hole or not? And personally I would say OP is definitely not the a-hole. Her husband acts mega entitled and he seems to have no empathy for her as well, because clearly she is just working as hard as him. Anyway, a comment on Reddit said, "Not the a-hole, someone needs to knock your husband off his high horse. You two need to have a serious talk at home that you're equals and he is not the boss. Hell, if he's treating employees like this, then things won't go well at work either. Husband and I work an equal amount of hours, so we split the chores and take turns cooking. It sounds like he needs to pitch in too." Comment number 2, not the a-hole, and if that's how your husband is acting at work, his stint as an assistant manager will be a short-lived one. For the sake of his career, he needs to learn the difference between being a boss and being a leader. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. HOA put a lien on my property and foreclosed on my dream home over a $125 missed payment and then stole my property. I've been waiting to tell this story for a long time, and now that there is an actual conclusion, I can. Years ago, my husband and I moved into what I consider a dream home. It's in a nice area, a good school district, and has everything on my bucket list for a house. I knew that there was an HOA involved that I did not have a choice to become a part of and send fees, but it did not matter. I was really happy and we spent years living in that home in peace without so much as a single incident. Then, however, we got a notice in the mail from the HOA that our house was set to go to auction the very next week. We were lost for words and the notice did not give any other information besides that. We had been paying all of our mortgage and HOA fees, so there was no reason for us to become foreclosed. My husband went and tried to talk to the head of the HOA, but was only given a card for their lawyer and told that all communication must go through him at this point. With only a week left before our house was apparently set to be auctioned off, we did not really have time to find a lawyer and instead tried to sort the entire thing out ourselves. The lawyer alerted us that 2 years ago the HOA fees were slightly raised and there was a period of 3 months that we were paying the wrong amount of money. Now keep in mind, we are not talking about thousands or even hundreds of dollars that we did not pay. The 3-month total adds up to a missed $125. We did not knowingly do this either, because we started paying the increased rate as soon as we were told about it. Not once in the 2 years did anybody tell us that we owed money. At this point they added late fees, lawyer fees and interest to make the cost thousands of dollars. It would not have mattered if we had the money to sign them a big check, because according to the lawyer, they had already filed for the lien and foreclosure, so there was nothing we could do. I was absolutely devastated that we were going to potentially lose our home over a small amount of money nobody told us about. Getting a lawyer was the next step, but things like this take some time. During the time finding and hiring one, the auction took place without us knowing where or when it was. I was also not told what the house sold for, but as the former owners we got a cut. That cut was only $10,000 and that was before they were going to take almost half of it for the fees they claimed we owed. We paid about $700,000 for this house, so to get that much back felt like a slap in the face. There is no way we were going to be able to put a down payment on another house with what they were going to give us. We wanted to fight though, and the lawyer we hired thought that we had a decent chance of getting the entire thing overturned. In the meantime though, he spoke to the judge and filed the case, which meant we could stay in our home until the judge decided one way or another. We actually saw a few judges during this whole thing. I don't really understand why this was, as I just prayed that our lawyer was going to somehow pull a miracle. At first, the judge was ready to tell us that the HOA had every right to put a lien on and foreclose the house since we owed money for a length of time with no action towards paying it. The biggest thing that was going to help us was the fact that we were never given anything up until the point of telling us the house was going up for auction and we had to leave. They spent weeks in court combing and arguing ambiguous parts of the HOA agreement. The problem with mail is that unless you made somebody sign for something, there's not really any proof it was received and sometimes no proof it was even sent at all. The judge seemed to be in favor of leaning towards the HOA story of sending multiple letters asking about the money and even meeting with us in person to try and work out how we could pay it. Everything they said was a total lie, and this guy was eating it up. One thing in that contract saved us, and it specifically was about a letter needing to be sent before they went to court to get a lien, and foreclosure as a last warning and a chance to come to that court meeting. The thing is, that letter had to actually go through certified mail, which meant there would be a record of it being sent and received. Without that, it did not matter if the judge believed that we knowingly ignored paying, we were in a way getting away with things using a loophole, and I am so happy it existed. We were dismissed from court and told that we had to wait for a judge's decision. I want to just tell you that all of this story from the beginning to the decision process I'm going to tell you in a moment took 2 years. That was 2 years of us living in a house not knowing if the next day we were going to get kicked out. The courts found that the HOA stole our property illegally and we would not be forced to move out. It was a little bit of a half celebration though, because we were told that the fee was not going anywhere. The courts concluded that it was our responsibility to know that we owed money and had to make some kind of payment plan and submit it to the court, or the HOA could go through the whole process again, this time with a letter, and win. We were able to come up with a solution of paying a chunk up front and then adding a little to our normal monthly fees until it is paid off. This was probably one of the most stressful periods in my entire life, and the thing that makes it worse to me is that it was over $150. I would sort of understand if there was somebody owing thousands of dollars being taken to court or even being forced to sell their house. However, this was clearly the HOA attempting to work around the rules and steal our property. If we were told right away, we would have just given them the money and been done with it. Instead, they made it so we had to spend 2 years in court, pay our lawyer, and then pay their hugely inflated fee when it was all over. I never thought HOAs were that bad before, but I'm starting to see what the internet has been complaining about. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.